Wizard101 is about to change a bunch of crazy important spells. Y'all, if you're anything like me, you're probably sort of tired of all of the spells changing every 2 seconds. However, I think this one is actually a crazy big positive because all of the spells I'm going to talk about today are buffs. They're not getting weaker, they're getting stronger. So it looks like there's an update coming to the game in just a couple of days. Wizard101 just tweeted out the update note so that we get like a sneak preview of it. And honestly, I looked at it, I wasn't expecting much, but they're actually adding a bunch of spell changes that are going to fundamentally change how PvP is played and how advanced combat's done. So it basically looks like they're changing and buffing blade and trap removal in this game. And this is why this is so important, right? In the most recent update, they removed forms of infinite removal like Enfeeble and also Dimension Shift. Earthquake was also PvP banned in test run, but because blade stacking is so OP, I think they decided to keep it. But this is definitely a direction that the game is moving, right? Anything that infinitely removes, it's just simply OP, and it gets in the way of both healthy PvP and actually meaningful challenges outside of player versus player. So their solution seems to be to buff all the trap and blade counters that we currently do have to keep up with the fact that you can literally just blade or trap like crazy in PvP or in any setting. Today, we're going to be going through literally all of the changes, comparing it to the spells as they are right now. Now, the Leprechaun change that they put in the update notes might actually be the craziest thing they've added in years, because literally this could be like not just a life change. This could be something that helps a bunch of schools. So basically what Leprechaun does right now, right, it clears 1 trap for 1 heal. And what the update note says is that it's supposed to now clear 2 traps. Now, the big question is, right, is it going to clear 2 traps for double the heal, or is it going to do 2 traps for 2 heals? Because if it's going to clear 2 traps for 2 heals, that means that as soon as somebody double traps you, any school with the heal overtime gambit can immediately set up their gambit. That means very hard to set up gambits, like for example, you know, Life Scion, where you could do a little bit of extra damage if you have 2 heals on yourself, and even full-blown double damage heal gambits like Thundering Djinn, right? These are spells that don't get used. They could be used immediately if someone puts 2 traps on you, if this Leprechaun change is like literally 2 traps for 2 heals. Definitely something to look out for. Obviously, if it's 2 traps for 1 heal, it's still a huge buff. It's just, I mean, I feel like 2 traps for 2 heals would actually make spells that are currently not used almost at all way more usable. The other trap counters that are getting changed are potentially even more impressive. Right now, what Centaur does, it clears 3 traps and makes them into 3 balance blades if you happen to clear, like, you know, 3. If you clear 2, you get 2 balance blades, 1, you get 1. And it also attaches 575 life damage to it. Now they're going to change it to clear 4 traps in 1 turn. This is the biggest trap removal buff we've ever seen. And 4 traps for 4 blades, it is really cool, but keep in mind that this will no longer be balance blades according to the update notes. That being said, if this is true, that means if someone traps you 4 times, you can immediately set up blade gambits that literally do double damage when you have 4 blades on, like Primal Oni, like Storm Scion, and Death Djinn. So you might see Centaur into, like, you know, like blade gambits literally immediately if someone is a little bit less cautious about the way they trap compared to now. And if that wasn't enough, they're also going to be changing Immolate, which I believe is also a very, you know, like not used spell, especially in the current meta. Right now, what Immolate does is, right, it does a little bit of self damage, and then it does an overtime on your opponent, and then it clears up to 2 traps for an extra overtime on your opponent. It's a very complicated card to really explain. You should just use it if you're really confused about it. But basically the idea is it's a self-damage hit that sets up 2 damage overtimes if you have traps on yourself. And now, instead of clearing 2 traps, it's going to clear 3 traps. Now, because of the way the spell works, I think the second overtime, probably they're going to make it so that it gets more and more powerful the more traps you clear. Meaning an Immolate where you clear 1 trap versus 3, they're probably going to do a lot of different things in terms of damage. You're probably thinking, but Sauce, Immolate, you can't train it, right? Unless you're a fire. They're also going to change that. So now, every school is going to have the same access to a bunch of different trap counters for the first time ever. And as if the trap counter buffs were not enough, they're also going to be changing Wyvern. This is probably the first ice buff we've seen in a while. Right now, it clears 2 blades for 45 traps, meaning if you clear 2 blades, you get 2 45 traps. And as powerful as 2 45 traps are, the fact that it's only 2 blades and there's, you know, triple blades that exist in this game, it just makes it so that when you do this, you might not actually end up removing a buff that you want to remove. And since Ice is supposed to be the anti-blade school, I can't imagine any better school to get a triple blade removal spell. This is like, I think they should have gotten this a while ago. And I think the Ice Wyvern change is especially interesting because they didn't actually do it in the update notes anyways to Banshee. Right now, Banshee clears 2 blades. And what's interesting about Banshee is that for each blade it removes, it puts 2 weaknesses, meaning it could set up 4 weaknesses out of 2 blades, which means it's already pretty powerful. But I guess they looked at Wyvern and thought that it wasn't as good, and honestly, I agree. In its current form, it's simply not as good at removing blades like Banshee is, for example, because you don't set up anything immediately like Banshee does. I think time will tell if this is going to be as, you know, applicable to other schools. Like, you might have noticed when I was talking about Centaur, when I was talking about Leprechaun, I can immediately see you using that as a trap counter on not just life, but other schools that have stuff that they can do with heals and blade. Is this going to be something where you can remove 3 blades for 3 traps on a school that's not ice and set up like a trap gambit? Maybe. We'll see if Myth can set up a better Myth Scion, or maybe Fire can set up a better Fire Djinn with, you know, an Ice Wyvern that does, like, you know, extra blade removal for 3 traps. But it's definitely going to shake up the meta a lot more. Right now, in my opinion, there is more PvE in PvP than in PvE. And what I mean by that, like, you know how in PvP you just blade stack or trap stack and kill the boss? That's basically a lot of what PvP is right now, because it's just so hard to counter and catch up with someone who's just blading and trapping every round. And what's even more interesting is that they added this change in the raid update where they also added these, you know, challenge sigils for the first time, right? Changes to these spells could also make actual combat in this game way more interesting in the future, meaning you might not get the chance to just blade spam or trap spam a boss just because, you know, like, you want to, like, one-shot them. The only other meaningful change that they did was that they're gonna, I guess, remove the no PvP ban from Pigsy top path, which means a direct heal for the team is still gonna be a thing that's allowed in PvP in the future. Now, is this really a game changer? Not in raids, because you need that life pip and Archmastery is low in raids. And right now, I'm not sure there's any advanced combat that requires you needing Pigsy, like, desperately. So I'm not sure it's a game changer now, but it is something to keep our eyes on for the future. Maybe there's gonna be team PvP, or maybe, like, you know, certain, you know, challenge modes and sigils, or maybe raids, where this is actually something that we are very thankful for, you know, being able to use a direct heal from Pigsy. All in all, y'all, I'm really happy they're making this change. I mean, we've needed this, in my opinion, for a really, really long time. I'm not saying that blade stacking or trap stacking should be literally impossible, but if it's super, super simple to blade 70 times or super, super simple to trap 70 times, I think it should be just as equally simple to do something about it and turn it into an advantage for you if you choose to pack cards against it. This might be looking like a super WPVP update, and it's also a really nice change that they're, you know, buffing spells, you know, even if it is by surprise. What do you guys think of these changes? Are you guys excited to do this in PvP? Do you guys think this is going to affect other things outside of PvP? As always, I look forward to reading all of y'all's comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed, leave us something new, and if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong, stay awesome. Y'all see y'all soon, and yeah, yo.